Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Short Terminal Investor Podcast Show. I'm your host, Justin. I'm here with Mr. Rommel, and we're going to just see where today's episode takes us. Rommel, he is a kick-ass realtor in California. He is a incredible nurse anesthetist, family man, shoe connoisseur, as I just learned, and I'm excited to hear more about him and what he's got going on in his personal life.
Well, those are kind words, Justin. I really got to pay you after the show to to keep pumping me up and as a hype man. That's great. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude. Thanks. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I know that you own a short-term rental or two of your own, and I think you and I have a lot of similarities. In fact, if you didn't live in, California and you were much closer, I could see us being complete and total besties. But tell me a little bit about your journey and kind of just where you are to date and where you started.
Well, sure. Yeah. Let me fast forward. I guess everything started. Let's just go to the short-term rental journey. It just started like during COVID, where I mean, COVID hit. You know uh, well that we were frontline workers. We saw, you know, literally the worst of it. And I just decided, I was thinking to myself, like, what if I fell ill or if something horrible happened, which was a possibility. I didn't necessarily know how I was going to feed my family. And I read I had a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've had it for years. I was intending on like reading it, but never did. I finally picked it up because I just started thinking about how I can earn other streams of income, and then I just went down that rabbit hole. I kind of got hooked up with a realtor here and there. Thought about like getting rentals. I guess the market was just skyrocketing through 2021, so it didn't really make sense. I was trying to compete with other buyers or whatnot, and then I stumbled on this short-term rental Facebook group, and I went down that rabbit hole, and I got really interested in that. And when I learned about how you can manage your short-term rental remotely, and it can also offset your active income and the ROI and the what you can make is like far and away better than long-term rentals. That's how I decided to just go down that path. And so that's where I started. I hooked up with a realtor in Vegas. I tried looking at different markets. Started going like listening to podcasts. I think you're pretty familiar with like Avery Carl's podcasts, um, Michael Sjogren's, everything. And I think it just definitely was just almost God's plan, where a buddy of mine called me from North Carolina, told me, "Hey, listen, a buddy of mine is doing real well in real estate, and he quit." So that was kind of a light bulb in my head, how he can quit. He's also a CRNA like us, so how can he quit a high paying job in real estate? So I had a conversation with him, and that's where it started. We got our first short term rental in Pinehurst, which is a golf destination. I had no idea where that is. I didn't know what
Okay.
it was.
Is that in Cali or where is that at?
That's in actually North Carolina. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Did not know. Okay.
yeah, I didn't know either.
So
But
for everybody out there listening, Ramel lives full time in you're what, like Southern California ish?
yep, Southern California, all the other side of the United
Yeah.
States.
You're managing a place probably what, 2,000 miles away? I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that initial short-term rental, um I had him sort of like kind of walk me through, and there were some stumbling blocks and there's some learning curves. So I had them manage it initially, and I saw how easy, and not how easy, it wasn't easy, but
Of
I
course.
saw how he was kind of doing it. And then fast forward to probably a year later, I kind of got the bug. I'm like, I can do this on my, unless people are saying I could do this from remotely, and people were getting cabins from the Smoky Mountains, and they were managing it from here. So, I think a few months later, Tyler Kuhn, as we all know, the infamous Tyler
Good
Kuhn
old
with best
Tyler.
that
Yeah. That hair, man.
Amazing. That hair, man. He's
Yeah,
man, that
I got
hair.
two stories to add. I got two stories to add about Tyler real quick. Um, sorry, I told you unfiltered. Yo, it's early here, and I had two kids that did not want to sleep last night. Okay, so Tyler, um, I saw him at Bill Faith's Rock the Smokies event. Got to meet him in person, and yeah, I see and talk to him all the time. But it's just one of those things. Like I see and talk to you all the time, but like I've never met you in person. One, I looked at him and I was like, "Hey, you're shorter than I thought you would be." He just looks so tall in his like videos and photos. I think it's the hair, man. And then I saw another guy that morning. I thought it was Tyler, so I yelled at this guy. I'm like, "Hey, Tyler!" He turns around, same hairstyle, gorgeous hair. Not Tyler at all. Not Tyler at all.
It's the pompadour look, yeah.
Oh God. So talk to me a little bit more about I want to kind of jump in and circle back to the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, which I think people have somewhat forgotten about or slept on. And for me personally, I I read that book just before we started anesthesia school. It had been talked about for a while, and then a close best friend of mine named Chase. Chase handed me this book, and he's like, "You need to read this," or something. And I had it for a while and slept on it, and just one day woke up and was like, "Screw it, I'm going to read it." And I'll never forget the connection personally for me was like, "Holy shit, I feel like I've experienced this." Because my other best friend's dad in our small town, he owned like over 100 single family homes, and he was always preaching and always saying half the shit in this book to us. I never understood. Like, I don't work for money, money works for me, leverage, leverage, leverage. And my personal family, my mom and dad, they did the best for me they absolutely could, but I grew up incredibly blue collar. And it was like, hey, we want you to go to college. We want you to get a good job. We want you to invest in your 401k. You're not going to we don't want you to do anything risky. Don't buy investment property. Don't do and then just kind of come to find out, much like the book, you're like, oh shit, like my rich parents weren't the rich parents that I thought. It was the poor. Because, this best friend, his dad that owned all these houses, he wore shitty, beat up clothes, drove a clunker of a truck. He had some nice toys. He lived in a little bit of a nicer home than what we did, but not by much. And I'll never forget one day we went out to lunch and he's like, "Look, I will buy your lunch today." And I'm like, "No, no, no. I got my own lunch. I got my." And he's like, "Look, I'm not just rich. Like I'm stupid rich. Like I can afford to buy your lunch." And I'm like, "Wait, how? I thought you worked for the man that owned, you know." He's like, "No, I am the man. These are all my investments." And you're like, "Oh." And it just kind of just hits differently for you. And then you start to see that you can have anything in this life you really want to. And it's just like someone lifted a veil from my face after I read that book.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think that, once I read that book, everything like opened up in my mind just because I was thinking to myself, like you and I, we're making upwards to like, I don't know, close to like low 200s, 200K, as far as like salary wise. The more we put in, the more we're gonna make. But I realized, like, dude, we're just killing ourselves. And when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I thought about, and he was talking about buy assets, not liabilities, and let the assets work for you. Man, it was, yeah, I mean, the connection between that and sort of like your friend's buddy or your friend's, was it uncle or whatnot, was my parents. They would tell me, listen, don't buy rental property. They had, unbeknownst to me, well, I knew this, but they had a rental property. They just didn't want, they just had the hassle of like um, having to handle tenants or whatnot. And fast forward 30 years later, that property they bought for like, I don't know, $70,000 is worth $700,000 now, and it's just cranking 300, like 3,000 to $3,500 a month, and it's just they don't have a mortgage on it; it's paid off. And if they didn't have that, they're going to live off of Social Security, which like today,
It
they're
ain't
barely
shit.
able to survive. Yeah, you're not even going to
So
survive.
my parents are doing the same, living off of, they had a very, very small, retirement fund put back, just to, you know, average, middle class workers. It's hard to put into a decent 401k. And then those dips in 2007, 2008, like that ravaged people.
It decimated
Um,
them.
yeah. And so they're living off of what they had left from that. And then, their it's not social security, but whatever else they get, for paying in all those years. Maybe it is social security. Hell, I don't know. But they actually just bought their first rental property, or they haven't bought it yet, but they're looking into making that purchase. They're getting closer, and it's just funny how it's like, they see the power of what it can do now.
What changed their mind is my question. Like, walk me through what kind of opened their eyes.
I think it was just seeing, like, just, everybody else that is doing this and being successful with it. And then, you mentioned something too, like, hey, here we are earning $250,000 a year. Dude, I bet I pay 100 grand a year in taxes, at
That's
least.
absolutely it. Yeah, at least.
Um, and last year we did a cost seg on a small property that we bought. We paid 480,000 for it, and I got to take a $75,000 taxable deduction against that, and I got back, like, I'm going to round up, um, somewhere to the tune of, like, $20,000 back in on a tax return because of that for
No,
this year.
100%. Yeah, I mean, like, I think what opened my eyes was that everybody else could do it. I knew a guy that owned like 3 or 4 short-term rentals, and he got like a boku bucks back. And if he could do it from California, I could do it. So, I mean, rounding back to meeting Tyler, I knew that I wanted Smokies, but I love North Carolina. And North Carolina is kind of like the best comp to California. Like, you can go one way. I mean, except it's horizontal versus vertical, like California. But you can go one way. You're in the Smoky Mountains, and it's like the Big Bear here, and you go the other way, and you're on the on the coast, the North Carolina coast, where Oak Island, Wilmington. It's gorgeous. Over here, it's kind of like Laguna Beach, Huntington Beach, or whatever. I kind of like the North Carolina beaches better, but so that, with Tyler, I bought a cabin with him. It was like 485, and it was like a almost, God just telling me, hey, listen, I think this is the one, because I was kind of looking at cabins. It didn't really catch my eye, but this A-frame cabin fell out of contract. And Tyler, I saw it, and Tyler was like, yeah, it fell out of contract. I think people just the buyers got cold feet. And so I said, like, let's do it. And then I just literally offered asking, because everybody else was like offering way above asking. This was in the Atlanta Blue Ridge market. I was looking at the Blue Ridge. But you're right. I bought the cabin. We did a cost seg, and it opened my wife's eyes, because we literally got like a $90,000 like write off, and then that first tax return, the year prior to the cost seg, I think we actually got back like a couple $1,000, but the year of the cost seg, we got back like 30,000.
Yeah.
So it
Well,
was
the year
phenomenal.
before the cost seg, we ended up paying 12 or 14 thousand dollars. I mean, I've been paying taxes ever since I graduated CRNA school back in 2017. Um, most years I end up paying something small. Last year was a big year. I think it's just, I just didn't. I went to a new facility. I think I just didn't set it up right to take out enough for taxes. And I mean, that's the hard thing. And there's so much power in this. Even if you have a bad year on the short term rental and you don't crush it in terms of, net income, you still got so many other things at play here: tax benefits, appreciation, debt pay down from somebody else. And I think so many people forget about that. I suffered a loss to that, man. We sold a short term rental a few years ago, and I completely regret it. Wish we would have held on to that place.
Yeah,
It is
I
what it
have
is.
a. We had a long-term rental, and we. It was like basically my old condo that I lived in. Bought it 2007, and then then the crash happens. I bought it for 295 or 395, and then crash happens. It went down to about $200,000, so it lost $100,000 plus of equity, and everybody in my community was like just selling it, short selling it, whatever. I didn't sell it because my parents had some skin in the game. They helped me with the down payment, and I thought to myself, I'm not letting my parents lose their money
Yeah,
by short
take
selling.
loss.
And they actually encouraged it. They were like, "You should short sell it. Don't worry about the money." I'm like, "Nope, nope, nope." So 3 years later, I married my wife, and we moved out, but we rented it out for the next 7 years to a lady that she short sold her house, and her credit was shot.
Of
And
course.
yeah, she was a great tenant. And by the time she moved out 7 years later, I didn't know at the time, but we sold it because we were having our second child, and I wasn't a landlord. I didn't read the Rich Dad Poor Dad stuff, and we sold it for what we bought for, and I regret it. It's worth like $200,000 more than what I sold it for now. I'm like, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I just think anymore, like I'm just gonna hang on to whatever I buy or do a, return of equity audit every 5 years and see how it's looking. So tell me a little bit about how you're managing today in North Carolina, but living in California. Like what systems, what happens if there's a freak accident? What kind of contingencies do you have in place?
Dude, you have no idea. Like, the freak accidents you're talking about, like, it literally happened. It's almost like anesthesia. Like, literally everything that happens that you don't want to happen happens in the first year. It happened to me in first year of anesthesia. I literally popped teeth, and I
Oh
pieced
God.
it. Oh man, it was
Oh
not
God.
good. It was, and literally that's first year out of anesthesia school versus like in school. Like, why didn't it happen in school? But especially for the short-term rental. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a tree fall, and it fell on my like hot tub. Luckily, nobody was hurt,
Stop.
but 100%. I had a guest say, the tree fell in the back. Nobody's hurt, but it just fell and it went on your hot tub. She sent me a picture. I think I still have it, and it literally fell. Luckily, we have um, like a little fence, not fence, but like a wooden patio that like it was at the height of the spa, so it just fell on the patio, but covering the spa. We've also had people get stuck in the snow when the snow's like 2 feet high, and they're like, "Hey, we got to get out." We've had my like uh, handyman have like and when we were setting up the STR, they got stuck in the gravel. They couldn't get out, and they had a trailer. It was just mess. But I mean, to be honest with you, that I mean, there's nothing that I would do different that I would do over here. I mean, if I had a problem with the plumbing over here, I just call a plumber. So what I do, I
Yeah, for
just
sure.
Yelp it. Yeah, I have a awesome cleaner, Carol. She is gold. She's like my manager. I call her my manager. She's not even a cleaner. She's like my manager. She tells me what I need, what I gotta get, what I don't need. If I'm, I run suggestions to her. She's connected to Hospitable, which is like the software that I'm pretty sure a lot of people use. Other
Love
people use other
hospitable.
different things,
Yeah.
but yeah, she's connected, so she knows when people are checking in, checking out. And I also have a handyman that, if I need to do little odd jobs here and there, and funny enough, his business is called Odd Jobs and Honeydews or something. His name's
Yeah.
Matthew Kellogg, but he's golden. I would just text him, "Hey, listen, the guest told me that something's creaking. Hey, do you have time to drop off some batteries?" And I have those two are the main go to. Otherwise, I just kind of look for vendors. We had a guest lock themselves out, and there was like a lock there. I don't know how they locked themselves out, but anyway, I just called the locksmith, 24-hour locksmith, from while I was in the OR. I was waking a patient up, about to wake a patient up. I called literally a locksmith, and I told him, "Can you go to my cabin?" And they were there.
See, this is gold right here. For everybody out there, it's like, look, I want to self-manage. I'm afraid. I don't know if I can. I'm busy. I have kids. I have whatever. I'm a high earning W-2. I don't care. This is evidence that you can do it too. I think, for me, I mean, with the automations, with you know, basically it boils down to this. It's going to be who and not how. Because while
Hmm.
I live 5 hours north of Gulf Shores, which is the market that one, I serve for savvy SDR agents, I own personally investments. Leslie owns and operates a design, operations, and hospitality business there. Um, you know, even if I could swing by in 15 minutes and I don't know, I'm just going to make something up here, fix that, like, the flapper on the toilet valve or whatever. I don't know how. I'm not a man's man. Like, and even if I would have an interest in doing this, I'm still not going to be the person to go
Hmm.
turn the wrench. So I'm going to pick up the phone. And if one handyman doesn't call, I'm going to keep calling down the list. And if it's an absolute shit show, then I'm going to start calling professional trades, the HVAC people, the plumbers, the
Yeah.
electricians, until someone answers the phone and they go out there. Like, and if it's really, really a true emergency, then you're going to call 911 or you're going to call the police.
Absolutely. No, it's
You
true.
being there is not going to affect anything.
Yeah, I think you said earlier we're like both like could be like a mirror image of each other because I'm the same way. I'm not a man's man. I'm like when it comes to car stuff, my wife always told me like, "Hey, can you change the oil?" I can change it. I mean, but do I want to? I don't.
Yeah,
And
I'll
there's
change
like
it.
and
I'll
there's
drive
like
it down to speed loop for you.
exactly. Yeah. Or, if there's something like, mechanical or electric in the house, I'm like, dude, I don't want that. I don't own a lot of tools. If you see my
Yeah, same.
toolbox, it's just thrown, in the toolbox where my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, he's got like a garage that's like, it's like, it's
Yeah.
insane. Everything's like put in its right place. He has the right wrenches, all this. I have no interest in that.
Okay.
That's just you
My
and I
number
are the same
one
way.
my number one pet peeve about my significant other. Oh gosh. Debating if this is a good idea to mention this, but I'm just going to
I
say
know.
it. Okay, here we go. My
You
number
said
one pet peeve.
unfiltered, dude.
I know. Look, and it is. So my number one pet peeve about Leslie is she will buy the most random shit, whether it's for our short term rentals or our house, and then she presents it to me at like 6, 7 o'clock at night because she's a night person and I'm not.
Hmm.
You and I, we work in the operating room, dude. We have to
Hmm.
get up at like 4:35.
Hmm.
She let me sleep in today. I slept until I think like I was messaging you at like 7 a.m. Like I had just woken up. Like that's sleeping in. Sleeping into her is like getting up at 9 a.m. Um, and so she'll present me some giant box with 1,000 parts, and she's like, "Yeah, but it says on the box like it's only gonna take 30 minutes to put together."
Hmm.
Cool. If it says 30 minutes, it's gonna take me an hour and a half. You know.
Yeah.
And I was up at 4:30 this morning. It's 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and mentally, I'm fried. I don't want to do this right now for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather go sit in the garage at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning with a cup of coffee, watch the sun come up, and put this together and struggle bus.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's funny because like there's times where my wife would be like, "Well, we should do this project and that project," and I go, "That's great." And in my mind, I'm thinking, "Who am I gonna call to, to put it together?" Because I'm like, "That's great. That's a great project," but I think in her mind, she's like, "Okay, we're gonna get the tools out and we're gonna spend like the day doing this." And I go, "Dude, it is 100 degrees outside. I would
Mm,
rather like do something like this, do something on the real estate stuff. It's just crazy." But anyway, rounding back to the real estate, I really want to ask you, like, so you're 5 hours away from your market as a realtor, and you transition, you're killing it. I do that.
thank
You're
you.
absolutely killing it this year. Um,
A lot
how
of
are
lessons learned.
you? Yeah, how are you actually getting out there, sort of like promoting yourself, trying to get like listings, like prospecting when you're like 5 hours away?
Mm. I think a lot of that just leads with, well, okay, let me just back this up. And I'm probably going to yawn again. This is what it is. This conversation is not boring. I just can't stop yawning. But um, That was a huge hurdle originally. When Tyler and Trish were interviewing me, Trish and I had this conversation before, and Trish is the sweetest lady, and I absolutely adore her, and I love
And
the fact that she's from our.
yeah, who's Trish again? I'm sorry.
So Trish is kind of like our head of human resources. She's management inside the
Okay.
Savvy STR agents team. She's like the behind the scenes, runs everything, probably takes no credit for nothing. I don't know. I think she's the glue that holds most of this together. She's such a sweet woman. And I love the fact that she's from Arkansas. Arkansas is a very special place to me. That's where I
I
did
have a
CRNA
couple.
school at.
Yeah, I have a couple great friends in Arkansas. Shout out to Wade and Jeff. Yeah.
Beautiful out there. Okay,
Yep.
so originally it was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I don't know yet. And then it wasn't the right time for that call. Because the irony is I was talking to Trish about this, like, let's just say summer of 2025, winter of 2026. I had it all together and they hired me on, but I wasn't thinking about it. Um, it took me by surprise. It was all team based leverage software, and then a few mentoring phone calls. Joe Roney out there, shout out to him. There's another person named Ashley. I don't think I'm probably her biggest fan, but she's a sweet person. She's changed my life, and if she's listening, thank you. Genuinely. And with the connections that you make, your sphere of influence is so incredibly powerful. But I quickly realized that, one, I lead by systems and processes set up. I am team focused. I need leverage and I heavily utilize leverage. And then I realized that everyone's going to be coming in from out of town, out of state, or they're not even going to care to see it, or they can't get in to see it. That's going to be the other key. Nothing makes me cringe more than when a guest or when a client's like, "Hey, I want to come in town and like kick the tire, so to speak." But the thing is you can want to come into town and kick the tires, but these are investment properties. These aren't residential homes. Like, these people don't have to get out, and they probably don't want you in there anyways. And for a lot of reasons, the host doesn't want to disrupt your stay and risk a bad review to let some realtor come walk through the house, right? Um, and so I was like, okay, well, I can actually plan these setups, with these clients. Like, Gulf Shores is my market. I have obsessed over the data since 2020, because I've been investing down there since, and I have a very unique perspective to the market. I own my own short-term rentals down there when I think a lot of realtors don't. And I think I know most of the realtors down there, they would happily sell you anything, right? Like, they would sell you a piece of land today, a residential home tomorrow, and then a short terminal on the beach the next day, if that's how it all presented. I'm happy to take on a piece of land if it's for short terminal investment purposes, but I'm probably not your best bet. If someone I actually had someone approach me recently about wanting to buy a residential property. I'm like, hey, look, I'm not your guy, but I know 4 or 5 other badass agents that you should go talk to. Like, I don't sell that. That's not my niche. I want no part in it, really. Um, because I think they're also trying to use it secretly for short terminal purposes. And I just kind of got this like bad, like, this is just not going to end well. Like, you're getting the vibe, like, you're not telling me something, but you're kind of wink, wink, telling me something. I'm like, I'm not, this is not okay. And so, anyways, I think just with your sphere of influence, your medical people, leverage, Showami, the the contacts that you make, a lot of the other newer agents that are so gun ho to want to show properties, and just with living, I still do anesthesia Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then being a dad to twins and a husband and all the other things, I can't always be down there to show you property, but I will never, ever, never let you down. I have more than enough, kind of like with anesthesia, right? Like we have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And so I have those, and it's who, not how we're going to get it done for you. And, if you want to apply that to the North Carolina region for yourself, it's way simpler than what it seems. And I've realized that imperfect action will always be better than perfect action. And I think maybe you said that to me a couple days ago, you or someone else did, but um, you just got to go for it.
I think I told you, like, imperfect action, like when we're talking about doing this podcast. I think we talked about doing a podcast like a few months ago. And we were saying, like, and you kind of came up with the fact, like, your mentor told you, like, yeah, you just got to go for it. And I said, yeah, imperfect action right now is better than, waiting for the perfect time, and you just kind of have to, like, learn. And that's how I learned with, you know, with the short-term rental hosting, or, managing it from, 3,000 miles away. Like, we're never going to find the perfect time as far as, like, when to manage it from 3,000 miles away. If you're going to wait until the perfect time, it's never going to happen. Now, I find it,
Agreed.
like, real interesting that when you said that, I think what's gold is that you can pick and choose who you want to work with, and you have that sort of, like, you understand your lane, which I think it's gold. That's where I think you are very successful, because you're like, I've seen you on the Facebook groups, especially, niching down with the healthcare professionals or CRNA groups. It's just like
Catch a
you
lot of
and
shit from them,
some.
believe it or not.
Trust me, I see that. It's a lot of hate, and I'm not to say that I'm hesitant, but it's like I try to pump out, some content there, but you are very diligent about it, which is great. And I want to defend you as much as I can,
You do.
because I tell them, yeah, but understanding that you don't have commission breath, because we have that, well-paying W-2, 1099 anesthesia background. You kind of understand, like, hey, listen, I don't want to. You're not trying to widen your lanes and be like, well, I want to be a successful realtor. You're a successful short-term rental realtor operator. That's what you sell. That's your niche. I'm going to be the expert in that. So I think that's gold. That's great, because I'm trying to find, my sort of niche. We don't have a short-term rental. Like, we have a short-term rental market here in California, but the regulations are just insane. So I live in an area where, it's not as easy to get in, as far as, like, the barrier to entry price wise. If we go to Palm Springs or Joshua Tree, like, the barrier to entry is probably, like, you're looking at 500 to $700,000 homes, and these are like 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms. And like you mentioned before, you have to stand out. And so I'd love to just, understand. I keep asking you throughout the year. I'd like to understand, like, your market as far as Gulf Shores, your vacation market, true vacation market. But you've been very much preaching, like, these sort of, like, niche properties. Like, it's either the studio or 1 bedroom that you like. And in my mind, as far as, like, a new short-term rental investor, I would think they would be like, let me get a 2 or 3 bedroom. The more guests, the better. But you're preaching studio, 1 bedroom. It's got to be amenities, the views, and you're gonna crush it. Or you go 4 to 5 bedroom plus, but the in between um is kind of like muddled. So kind of walk me through why you think, first
I
off, the
think,
studio one.
this is an interesting topic. We had I just filmed a podcast that's going to drop on Monday with Alicia, who's our Smoky Mountains agent. And she, had the very same data, um, you know, and the 2 and 3 bedroom market for Gulf Shores, the most soaked inventory is a 2 bedroom for Gulf Shores, a 3 bedroom for Orange Beach. um, that doesn't mean you can't come in there and pick up a 2 or 3 bedroom and compete. You just have to be willing to come in and compete. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like,
Right.
bring the execution, bring the design, pick the right place, and you're going to kill it, because trust me, your competition is um it's really sad and quite pathetic, to be
I
honest.
think that's a lot of competition everywhere, almost every, except for I would have to say except for the Orlando market. Those guys
Dude,
crush
those
it.
people,
Those guys
oh,
crush it with amenities. It's crazy. But anyway,
the
yeah.
amenities, the
So
design of those places.
yeah,
But, I get a lot of people that just can't grasp, and I don't know how to better explain it. I think even you and I've had these conversations. You're poking around Gulf Shores for a little while,
I
you
still
know.
am. I'm like that. That's almost like that's gonna be the next market I buy in
Look,
because it's
I
just
have a 2.2 for $280,000 listed right now that'll pump 50, 55K all day long. With it's in that same region we're always exploring together. This guy
plantation.
just he needs to let this place go.
We'll have
But
to talk afterwards.
but I say all that though to say, you know, when it comes to like an economy budget, which in my mind is sub 300, 350K,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter about bedroom count, how many people you can sleep. It really matters mostly either about amenities or views because you could buy a studio for 275K that's going to have direct views,
Mm-hmm.
killer amenities, and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to do 50K. Or because of the increased occupancy that you're going to get in the sleep inventory, that's going to kind of like, inventory occupancy right here, and then this is
Mm-hmm.
going to be like views. Since you're on the water but you have no view, that place is still going to do 50, 55K, and Leslie's business has been fortunate to kind of see some of those direct results, and be witness to, for data purposes. And then the 2 3 bedrooms, they're killing it, but you got to bring the heat. What about you though out there in the North Carolina market? What kind of stuff have you done to your cabin out there to try to stand out? And what kind of um, what kind of tech and software are you using to help you manage this from so far away?
Well, like I said, like it's the hospitable. Honestly, like it's, and I gotta be honest with you, like I have a few buddies that are doing, they manage in sort of like these sort of beachy areas. I have a buddy that manages like over 100 like short-term rentals in Bullhead and Lake Havasu. Um, you with the mountain and cabin people, it's just a different avatar. They're very low maintenance. They just want to go there and relax. They just want to like, just get away. And for the most part, what really drives a lot of these um, people that are going to the cabin is basically, the views are great. Don't get me wrong. We have it like perched up on sort of like a plateau, and it doesn't necessarily. It has a patio where it can oversee somewhat of like a valley, but for the most part, a lot of them are like, "Hey, we're gonna go there. We just want to relax. We want to go hiking or whatnot." So as far as like software is concerned, I used to have like this electronic guide that I used to have, and I inherited it from the old owner, and it was actually for me, I thought it was pretty good. They could like scroll through what was local, what the local restaurants or whatnot. But I didn't really get an ROI on that. Like it wasn't like we didn't move the needle. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
as far as electronics wise, we have a bunch of TVs. I mean, the Amazon TVs are great. We have all the apps on there. So if they want to relax, we have, we have a fireplace, turn on the TV and they can just relax. We have, a couple of arcades in the downstairs. And that's pretty much it because, usually for the most part, they're probably going to be outside on a fire pit, what, looking at the
yeah,
stars
yeah.
and just chilling, because they spent all day hiking. So as far as like software is concerned or electronic wise, I mean, it's very low key, hospitable. I don't overcomplicate things. I think the one thing I've got to change is like the internet up in the mountains. We didn't really have fiber internet, especially on our side in Maggie Valley. Um, so I'm kind of thinking about getting Starlink. So we'll see about that. We're just using Verizon right now, but it's based on data. So if we got a lot of gas and they're watching a lot of TV, the price goes up. So I've got to like think about that.
What's your software stack right now?
Basically it was, it was real lean. I'm not like
It's okay. Mine is
using
too.
anything. Yeah. It was basically, it's just hospitable. I used to do, I forget what the other guesty, I think it was. Um, and then we had I didn't link it up to the Schlage. We have the Schlage on code.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually, because I only had the one that I was managing, I literally, once the guest booked, I mean, I know it's faux pas to make it, to say this, but literally, I just did it like manually, like, okay, well, there's the last four digits, done, and we did it through there, and that's basically it. To be honest with you,
Okay. So
yeah.
my tech stack, so for our portfolio, we're using Hospitable, Host Buddy AI, which is incredible. And then of course, you got your Airbnb, your Verbo. I
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do that. Yep.
personally use Price Labs for one or two places, but we hired out a professional revenue manager. But I think we're going to switch over to Emil Sakal, I think in the winter,
Yeah,
with
I got
Pricing
Price
by
Labs too.
Mira.
Yeah, that I forgot about that. I have Price Labs. Yeah.
And then I use, I love my data. I really do. The Airbnb Insights tab is great if you're like, you really need to be lean, but I like Rank Breeze because I really want to know what am I doing versus my competitors? How far can I really push this? What's my views? Um,
Are you using
and
that
the,
just because you have multiple properties that you also co-host? Is
I
that
don't co-host anything, sir.
oh, I thought you co-hosted. You're only hosting your own.
Leslie runs a hospitality and operations business, but
I
there
see.
is no co-hosting involved.
I
Yeah,
see.
politics, semantics,
I see.
tomato, tomato.
But she used
Um,
that. But that Rank Breeze, I had it before, and I don't know if it was because my market was, it's not as saturated as like Gulf Shores or the Smoky Mountains. It's a very small market, Maggie Valley. So
yeah,
I
right.
I used it for about a year and it didn't really move the needle for
I
me. I was like,
think
okay, well,
I think that I like to use it because we see like 10 million visitors a year. I
mm-hmm.
think there's something like, I don't know, 15 to 20,000 active rentals in this area that you're competing against. It's just a very mature vacation market with
Yeah,
lots of inventory. And so you really just need to know where you are with things. But
makes sense.
I think that as we start to kind of wrap this up and settle this down, I'd like to leave with two questions. One, I'd like to know if you have a book recommendation for everybody out there in the world. And then the other question is, if people are going to step into whether the California market or the North Carolina market to be an investor, what's one piece of harsh truth that they need to hear?
Mm. Okay, so I'll answer the second question first because I got a couple books right here that I actually I really like, and I'm like torn as to what I should recommend. Um, but uh, I I mean, so the second question is you're talking about like the harsh truth about investing in California. First in California, it's I mean, the blunt truth is that it is investable, but as far as short-term rentals concerned, it's really hard. I mean, I know the operators here like Tony Robinson and Patrick Switek and Rafa Lopez and Rafa Loza, sorry, and they are crushing it in Joshua Tree. And if you see their properties, you have to come in with some cash to make it look like. I mean, these guys are making Joshua Tree, which I don't know if you've ever been to Joshua Tree or you've seen Joshua Tree. It's basically a desert town, but people
Yeah.
love Joshua Tree National Park. It's a bunch of rocks. I don't know. Rock climbing. People like doing that. Me, I'm like, dude, give me a beach. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
they create an amazing experience. And if you go to like Big Bear, there's a lot of regulations. So there's just not a good vacation market place here. The regulations are just crazy, but you can make it. You just have to crush it, like you said, with amenities. It's got to be something like it's got to be killer. But you're looking at a price point where you're gonna have to put in $1 million plus or $200,000 of amenities. But that's just the harsh truth. But if you're gonna invest long term, this is a great market. Prices are softening, and you can get in here and make it worth your while. The appreciation in California is like no other. So that's one thing with California. With North Carolina, I mean, I'm not an expert. I always lean on like Tyler Kuhn, and I always lean on like other people. I know a lot of realtors there. I love that. I love North Carolina. The migration there is booming. As you know, like from people from Florida all the way north to New York, they're all coming down to North Carolina. The taxes are great. The insurance is awesome. You're not going to get like save for the one off like the Hurricane Helene that came in like a couple years ago that kind of
Yeah,
decimated
that's
West North
sad.
Carolina. Yeah, it was sad, but that was like a one off. But we don't have like hurricanes like they do in Florida, and it's an absolutely gorgeous place. Um, so for the most part, I think North Carolina is still at a price point if anybody wants to get in. Everywhere is in North Carolina. It's actually pretty good. It's still good. It's still nice. Contrary to what people think about short-term rentals, I think it's a great market. If you want the honest and harsh truth. Um, I as far as like a book I recommend, there's two. I recommend one was let me get it right here.
Go ahead.
One is the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by
Ah,
Mark Manson.
ah.
It's really good. It's really good. I read it like a couple months ago. But it's not necessarily like not giving a bleep, but it's basically just kind of like channeling your energy to the right, like what you got to care about, and it really channels about like you just a lot of people just take too much to heart, and the anxiety level just goes up. And I've just learned through like reading that book, there's some things you just gotta like just let go because it's out of your control or it's just not important enough. But other things you have to just pour your heart into. So it's just like it said, there is an art to it, because a lot of the times some people are going to say, like I think you mentioned before, there is a lady that is not your biggest fan, but it made you grow in the end. And unfortunately it's a relationship that you probably, there's relationships you're going to have to let sour and let go.
Of course.
And the other book
Yeah.
is I've read this just the other day, Wealthy and Well Known, Rory and AJ Vaden. So it's like building your personal brand. I think that in today's age with AI and social media, the only way you're going to just literally crush it is to build your personal brand. I mean, working
I
for the man is
am,
great, but you really got to build your
dude.
personal brand.
It's
I
not
mean,
that great. It's not that great. I think that's why, I'm so, blessed, or at least that's how I feel. I'm literally adding this book to my Kindle list right now, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep. Um, so thank you for that. That's why I literally just did. You know, Short-term rentals, I think as we kind of wrap this up and bring it to a close, um, just freed me from my W 2. It's done so much for so many others. And the more that you can invest, the more that you can buy back your time, which that's an incredible book for anybody out there. Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time.
yeah,
Um, you know, Working for the man is just that. Like, and I really think, and I hate to say this, but at like the end of the day, like we're all replaceable. And they would, something happened, they'd have your job posted tomorrow.
no, 100%. No, yeah, 100%. I absolutely agree. We were just talking about that with a friend of mine, and we're like, I said, "Hey, what happened to so and so?" And he said, "Do you remember?" And he just rattled off 5, 6 CRNAs, and I go, "I don't remember them." And he's like, "Yeah, exactly, because once you're
Yeah.
gone, you are gone."
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, I
All
think
right,
like
everybody.
I
Go
think
ahead.
like one last thing. Let me just ask
Yeah,
you, like, other than like the financial freedom and all that, what's the one thing that has sort of like given you a benefit about the short-term rentals and then and this business? I mean, other than like the financial, don't think about the financial, don't think about like, I mean, as far as like growth in certain areas, not financial wise, like what is that? I can tell you mine is
I
basically the
got it. I got it.
relationships. Yeah. So,
That's what I was getting. That's what I was getting ready to say. The relationships, the friendships. A lot of mine have, a lot of my like very close friendships have kind of fractured and splintered due to various things as we've grown, gotten older, married, kids, and I hate that, but we're all very different people than who we used to be,
mhm,
and this has just brought about like a whole new circle of people into my life, and I'm very grateful for that. And all the new friendships I make constantly because of this, and I think the education and information. It doesn't matter in short-term rentals if you're at the top or if you're at the bottom. There is so much knowledge to be given, to be passed around, and the top dogs are happy to feed the underdog. Like they are so. And you may even think that as like a newbie in this, that you have nothing to offer someone, and you're so wrong. You don't know that you're inspiring someone who's, whether it's at the top or at the bottom below you, with your resolve and your determination and your passion for this. So I think it's the relationships.
yeah. Well, thank you for that, dude. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, anyway, hey, we got to do this again. I would love to think, and thank you for, always thinking about me. I really am blessed. I pray about, and I'm grateful that, this relationship that we've grown over the last month, over the last year, has grown into this. I really am blessed and truly grateful for your friendship and just keeping me in touch. And so we'll have to talk about that too.
Yeah,
Hey, Mark.
absolutely.
All right, you
All
have a
right,
good one.
everybody.
Okay.
Hey, thank you. All right, we'll talk to everybody later.